Is Matt Laumann, Farmers and Merchants Bank. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So I guess that a lot of homes selling, a lot of high prices, and I guess you guys are doing a good amount of loans.
We are extraordinarily busy, as I would say most in the banking industry currently are right now. And you're right, the housing market has exploded. There are very few homes, very little inventory out there right now. So we're still seeing kind of a double whammy, if you will, with a lot of refinances with the mortgage rates being extremely low. And then on the other end, we're seeing the purchase market, which has really exploded. Even due to the low inventory, now you're seeing folks that are putting in some pretty crazy bids on houses just to even find the homes or the opportunities that are out there right now. So it's a very interesting time.
So what happens with that? I'm curious, because this is a phenomenon that I have not really seen. And these prices, people coming in and here's the list price that they've kind of figured out. And then somebody comes in, well, I'm going to lay on 10. Well, I'm going to lay on 20. Well, I'm going to lay on 30. And I'm wondering if these always appraise out. I mean, for someone who's buying in that situation, what's the role of valuation as far as an appraiser goes? If it just gets crazy, I want it.
Well, there's a couple ways that plays itself out. One, we are seeing as the comparables start to sell, you do see the appreciation rise pretty quickly within the market. However, when you have some of these rather large offers being put in on homes, the problem then becomes, okay, the home isn't really worth that much money. And so what we're seeing at this point in time is people are front loading that perceived equity that they believe is going to be in that property, or that they believe they need to make that offer in order to obtain the property. So what happens in those cases is more than likely somebody's got to make up the difference, whether that's an agreement between the buyer or the seller. Typically, the buyer is going to have to make up that difference. So let's use, for example, a $250,000 purchase price home. They're going to put a bid in for $290,000. We're actually seeing that happen right now, which seems a little crazy, right? $40,000 difference. Maybe that home's only going to appraise for $250,000. Somebody's got to make up that differential, okay? Because the banks are going to lend on a basis.
So that's part of the, because I know that in this kind of a market, they're expecting you to come in and be pretty well pre-qualified as much as you can be. They're not going to have you come in and say, well, hope you could get the loan.
Correct.
But I assume that there's still somewhat of a financing contingency to the effect of, okay, yeah, I'm pre-qualified, I make the money, I can do this, but if it doesn't appraise out, is that still usually in there?
Yes. So you'll typically see an appraisal contingency or a rider to the contracts, and that will provide an out for the buyers. Even in this market, though, however, you're seeing a lot of contracts that are being written without those contingencies in place. So people are taking those risks, I guess, if you will, in order to obtain a contract on a property that they might not otherwise be able to get under contract.
So what about the interest rates right now? I mean, they've been staggeringly low. I always say that, my husband and I thought we got a steal on our first house in Southwest St. Louis City, and we got a 9% interest rate, and we paid points too.
Oh, sure.
We paid points.
Sure.
And, I hear these numbers now. I mean, I think that probably helps the affordability. But what are you looking at right now generally?
The rates are ranging anywhere from the high 2s to the low 3s on the 30-year, and obviously they can fluctuate day in, day out. The 15-year had gotten about as low as 2%. I think with some points you might have even found a few outlets here or there, maybe some brokerages that were doing high 1s. So money had gotten extraordinarily cheap. It is still extraordinarily cheap right now.
Pretty amazing. Now, at Farmers and Merchants Bank, of course, you've gone through, there's a lot of services that you offer. I mean, mortgage lending is just a piece of it, but that's kind of the tangent we were on before, so I thought I'd go there. But, you have a lot of personal loans, you have a lot of people putting checking, savings, everything that you can think of. Mm-hmm. How are you operating right now as a bank, You still have pandemic guidelines. Everybody sort of varies. What are the operations right now at Farmers and Merchants?
Well, we're still adhering to each county's mandates, if you will, because we are located in Jefferson, Franklin, and St. Louis counties. So it was a little bit of a challenge up front because we had 3 different sets of rules, if you will, to have to be guided through this pandemic. Primarily, though, we have maintained our lobby hours through appointment only when the kind of the climax was occurring. And then currently our lobbies are fully open. Again, if those mandates change, we'll typically shift with those, but make it where they can still come in by appointment only. So you could physically be in your car in the parking lot, and if we had that sign out, you could call in and you could make an appointment to come on in the bank. That was just a little bit more for crowd control during the pandemic. But honestly, and we're very family oriented. Our staff members, we work and play together all the time. So you kind of, it's your home away from home, if you will. They've been extraordinarily. They've been extremely loyal. We've put every safety precaution and measure that we could or that they wanted, because there's really, again, been no roadmap for how we were all supposed to navigate this and are still continuing to navigate this. But I will say that the one side effect, if you will, of COVID through PPP loans, through a lot of these other programs, is the banks ourselves and probably all banks for that matter in general have been extremely busy throughout this pandemic.
Yeah, and there's a lot of so much now that has changed in the sense of, well, can it be done remotely? Where you might not have thought about that before. You might not have even thought about it because sometimes you don't think about something until the need arises. And I'm wondering if there's any of those things that you've done at Farmers and Merchants Bank and are trending in the banking industry that are new to you over the past year or so that you think are going to stay?
Well, to some degree, and I think it's going to be case specific with every organization. For us, for example, the working remote was something that we had never really entertained, and that was more for safety and security reasons for our clients' data, information, what have you. But the advances in technology now and the abilities to work remotely and work securely and safely, which is, again, typically the biggest pain point for the banking industry, is making sure that you've got that safe and secure way to do things that aren't within the 4 walls of the bank. But we have been able to figure out a way now to have some of our staff work remotely. Obviously, whether that was if people were being quarantined, maybe they weren't sick, but they still had to stay home with their children or a family member, or for whatever reason that might have precipitated that. And so I think you're going to see that shift, probably not as large as maybe some other industries, but I think you'll see a little bit of a hybrid approach now from banks where maybe they don't have to have quite as much personnel in, or they can have a little more job flexibility than we used to maybe traditionally have in the banking sector.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I worked quarantined for 10 days. That was unique.
It's interesting.
It is very interesting. And I mean, I was working quarantined sick.
Or doing it with your kids, climbing all over you or something else.
Yeah, no, fortunately, all I had was a dog. And he's so lazy that we don't really have to worry about it. That's one of the laziest dogs on the planet. Now, where are you? Mentioned that you were, in St. Louis County and Jefferson County and Franklin County. Where are your locations for Farmers and Merchants Bank?
Well, our main banking house is in St. Clair, Missouri, and we've been over there for over 100 years. We have locations in High Ridge, Lone Dell, and Eureka. So we span the Gravois corridor, and then we kind of cut off 44 there into Eureka.
So how is it going in St. Clair? I mean, I have always felt, honestly, because I'm an immigrant from the mean streets of Crestwood, right?
Sure.
That's where I grew up and kicked around, dodging the drive-bys and all in Crestwood. And coming out here, when you're looking at it, from a little further away, you see that, St. Clair, my goodness, is it just prime for expansion? You got a really good school district that's improving all the time, just passed a bond issue. You've got 2 highway exits. You have a lot of access in St. Clair, and I'm wondering if that's, and then you have the airport property that I don't even know what's going to happen with that. How are things going in St. Clair from the perspective of being, a bank at the heart of it?
Well, First of all, St. Clair is a fantastic little town. I think it is, as you said before, primed for expansion because we do have the two exposure points there off of Highway 44. With the airport being closed now for a couple of years, you've got some decent property frontage out there to work with as well. They just voted in a new mayor here that I think is taking the reins, if not yesterday, today. So, she'll have her work cut out for her. Hopefully there's some vision there as to what's going to potentially happen as it pertains to that. But I think you've got two things to look at in St. Clair. One's going to be whatever type of retail, possibly office or housing developments you can put there along the highway. And then two, I think that'll leak over into the industrial park area because, again, you have such good access points to 44 there. That only makes sense to kind of couple any efforts that you would do on the highway frontage there along with the industrial corridor as well. But we've seen a lot of smaller businesses starting to pop up in St. Clair. You're starting to see some slow revitalization in St. Clair. So it's good. And we're happy to be kind of at the heart of that. We obviously just moved into our new banking house from where we'd been for many, many decades. And so we're excited to be a mainstay in St. Clair for a long time to come.
So where's the new one?
So we're at 959 North Commercial. So we're right at the intersection of Commercial and 47. So we had a motor bank, basically more of a drive-up banking branch facility. In addition to the main banking house, and there was just some inefficiencies there. We'd owned that piece of ground for many years, and finally went forward with constructing the new, what we hope is the forever home for Farmers and Merchants Bank, and bring all of our staff and personnel from St. Clair under one roof.
I gotta say, I love the idea of the banking house.
Sure.
The banking house, and just a few minutes left. Every bank has a signature. You talk about, the atmosphere of family, which is what we have here at the station, to be honest with you, which is great. What do you think sets you all apart?
I honestly do believe, and this might be trite, but that we are very relationship oriented, as you need to be in community banking. But customers first. We're always here. We're always present for the customer. Not that we can help every single person, obviously, but the goal is to work within the fabric of the community, help the community grow, work with the school district, work with the different municipalities, and work with your client base. We're not going to try to be everything for everybody out there. We recognize our place within our communities, and that's where we want to work and help those folks to grow.
Fantastic. And how can people find out more about Farmers Merchants Bank? What's your online handle and the phone number?
So if you go to www.fmb4, that's the number 4, banking.com, you can find out pretty much everything you want to find out about the bank, about all our online services, about any in-person services, loans, deposits, anything that we're doing community event related. We do a lot of community related events, from shredding days, recycling days, cookouts for first responders, things for the school, our debit card mascot program that we do, which has raised quite a bit of money for the local school districts in the communities that we're in.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, Matt Laumann, Farmers and Merchants Bank. 3 locations. St. Clair? Let me see if I got these right. St. Clair, High Ridge, Eureka.
And Londell.
4 locations.
4.
Dang. Okay, I tried. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.